it'd be right there on the tip of my tongue, and I could communicate better. I could think better. I could just boom, right on point. I could focus. I just like. What's up, guys? I'm about to share with you 2 amazing supplements for mental health. And the first one, don't be too alarmed by the molecular structures here. It's all going to make sense and going to help illustrate the power of these and what's happening in our body with them. So the first one that we're going to talk about is 5-HTP. Some of you may have heard of this. Some of you may have not. Some people will use it for just going to bed. Being able to, as a sleep aid. Some people use it for depression, and it works pretty well for a lot of people. And then our next one is going to be L-Tyrosine. Now, L-Tyrosine is sometimes used for focus, alertness. I believe it's one of the ingredients in the little energy, the 6-hour energy or 5-hour energy. So this is going to help with a lot of brain chemicals. Now, the thing that these 2 things have in common, well, a few things they have in common. Number 1, they're amino acids. Number 2, you can buy them over the counter as a supplement. And 3, they can sometimes act as powerfully as antidepressants, or they can help you get off of antidepressants. So stick with me. This is important. If you haven't heard of these are very important molecules, amino acids that you're going to want to hear about and why they work, how they work. All right. So let's start with the 5-HTP. 5-HTP, this is the molecule. Now, it's not important that you notice too much about the what's going on here. It's been a long time since I took organic chemistry myself, so I'm a little dusty, if you will. So I wouldn't. It's been over 10 years since I took organic chemistry as an undergrad. But what happens here in the body is that 5-HTP is a precursor to form this guy. Now, if you notice what happens here, this is called a carboxyl group. So this carboxyl group is cleaved. There's a decarboxylation reaction that then results in this molecule. And this molecule, many of you may have heard of it. It's called serotonin. Serotonin is extremely important. It helps, as I said, it helps with sleep, it helps with mood, it helps with an overall sense of well-being, it helps anxiety, it cuts anxiety. Extremely important. So 5-HTP translates into serotonin. Now what's interesting is that some of the pharmaceutical drugs or prescription drugs that act on the same system, on the serotonin system, are SSRIs. That stands for selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. And what basically happens is that you have 2 neurons trying to communicate to each other, and there's these little vesicles full of serotonin. There's a little serotonin. And so they come to the end of this neuron, the axon, and there's chemical messengers say, they're like, yeah, give us the serotonin. And so it spills out these vesicles into the synaptic cleft. And then it relays a signal to this neuron, and you have cognition and mood and all these good things, okay? Now what happens is with people that are depressed, often they think there's a correlation with low serotonin levels. So this actually, there's usually a mechanism that recycles this serotonin back up into the synapse, back up into this synapse here, and is repackaged in the vesicles and then can come back down. So that's good and normal with a normal person, but they found that pharmaceutically, they couldn't find a way to increase the serotonin level. So what they did was they were able to create a drug that blocked the reuptake of that serotonin. So it's not recycled. So the serotonin just stays in this cleft. It just stays in there. And so the chances of it being taken up by the other neuron is extremely high, is much higher, and then therefore you have the therapeutic effect of relieving depression. Now, some SSRIs that you've probably heard of. Where is my eraser? Well, I'm just going to use my hand, I guess. So some SSRIs that you may have heard of. We have the grandfather of them all, Prozac. Generic name is fluoxetine. Then we have good old Zoloft. Generic name sertraline. And then we have Celexa. Good old Celexa. That one's old too. I think it was Prozac, Celexa, then Zoloft. But so Celexa is also, the generic name is citalopram. So these are SSRIs, and they help relieve depression and sometimes anxiety. So 5-HTP, instead of actually, what's interesting is the SSRIs, Zoloft, Prozac, Celexa, they don't actually increase your serotonin levels. They just disable the ability for your synapses to reuptake them, and so it just keeps that concentration in between the synapses with the hope that there's going to be enough of it to have a therapeutic result or response and alleviate the depression. Now, so this is unique in the sense that 5-HTP actually is the chemical precursor to serotonin. It actually increases your serotonin levels. And people who take MDMA or ecstasy, word has kind of gotten around that you should take 5-HTP afterwards, because when you take MDMA or ecstasy, it basically just drains it floods your system with the serotonin, but then it depletes your entire neurological system with it, and so the next day you just feel like complete garbage typically. You have dysphoria, extreme depression. So you can take 5-HTP to increase your serotonin levels, to bring those back up. Pretty cool, huh? So I will not lie and say that this is more powerful than SSRIs sometimes. Sometimes these are more powerful, but sometimes you can replace or wean yourself off SSRIs with 5-HTP. Now, you should always consult with your general practitioner, your physician, before doing any of this stuff. I have to make sure that I've got all my liabilities covered. Let's move on to the L-Tyrosine though. So this is cool too. This is kind of like a 2-for-1 type of amino acid. So once again, 5-HTP and L-Tyrosine, these are amino acids and they are precursor to brain chemicals. Now, as I elaborate on this, you're going to know and be more aware of the three main chemicals, the trifecta of brain chemicals that we need to focus on, that are like the most important brain chemicals that are going to allow us to feel good, to have good mood, to have good cognition, to be alert, focus, have concentration, be goal-oriented. So tyrosine, you see here, there's a few reactions that take place before it converts. It first converts into L-Dopa. You may have heard of L-Dopa, you may not have. It's very important in Parkinson's. L-Dopa then gets converted to this little molecule, which you may have heard of. It's called dopamine. Have you all heard of dopamine? So there's been a lot of videos out there lately discussing dopamine, mostly because of addiction, whether it's addiction to the internet, addiction to porn, addiction to sex, addiction to food. Dopamine is a very necessary and important neurotransmitter, a brain chemical. It gives you focus, it gives you drive, it gives you the ability to really hone in and do what you need to tackle what you want to. A goal-oriented, driven person is going to have healthy dopamine levels. Now, the problem with it is that you can reinforce kind of some evolutionary mechanisms that kind of flood your system with opiates or endorphins, and then you you overload the system and you end up deregulating or removing the receptors that accept dopamine. And so you essentially, dopamine really doesn't work. You have to get more and more dopamine. Anyway, that's a topic for another video. However, the dopamine, you need it. It's good. Dopamine is very good. And then the other thing so this dopamine then is converted into our third very important brain chemical, and that is norepinephrine. Now, you've probably heard of epinephrine, an EpiPen, when you have an anaphylaxis, allergic reaction, and you have to take that pin, swing it on your leg. And so norepinephrine is actually a precursor to adrenaline or epinephrine. Well, I can't really fit it on there, so I'm not going to. You get the point. Now, what's therapeutically, what are these used for? What type of brains are deficient in dopamine and norepinephrine? People with ADD or ADHD. So they can't focus and they don't have drive, or they have limited attention. They can only focus on the things that they are super interested in. And anything else like, hey, you need to do this, you have to, it's like they can't do it. So this helps balance out the system by using drugs that increase dopamine and norepinephrine. So what are some of those drugs? Let's go into the first class of drugs, and those are called amphetamines. So I'm sure that you all have heard of the big two. The first one is going to be Adderall. That has become the most. I think it has two L's at the end. This has been the most popular one. And then, of course, we have the good old Ritalin that I think started it all off. But these are amphetamines, and what they do is that they increase levels of norepinephrine and dopamine within your brain. And they allow you to focus and be motivated and have drive and to be kind of still and calm and do what you need to do. So, another class of drugs are dopamine and norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors. So I might have lost you on the whole SSRIs and the neurons. Hopefully you got the gist of it, but these drugs, and dopamine and norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors, they do the same thing as the SSRIs, but for dopamine and norepinephrine. So they don't actually increase your body's levels of dopamine or norepinephrine. They just allow it to stay within those synaptic clefts more, with the hope that it's going to be able to be utilized by the other neuron. Got bugs flying through here. And so there's only one drug within this class, and it is Wellbutrin. Wellbutrin's generic name is called Bupropion. You may have heard of it. Now, a lot of people that used one of these SSRIs as an antidepressant and found that they were having undesirable side effects, like sexual side effects are usually the biggest one. And the thing that Wellbutrin doesn't have those side effects. That's mostly a side effect of the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. But it can also make you a little bit groggy, a little bit sleepy. And so the Wellbutrin is more, because it's increasing the norepinephrine that makes you peppy and alert, and the dopamine that gives you motivated focus and makes you goal-oriented. This is used as an antidepressant, but is actually also good for ADHD. And it is an off-label use. Now, I wanted to share my personal experience real quick, see if I can make this as quick as possible. I wanted to make this a very short video, but I think it's going to be a little bit longer. But I hope that you appreciate it and share a little bit of my history. So, once upon a time, I had to hit rock bottom almost a second time before someone got through to me and told me, you know, things don't have to be this hard. Like maybe you should just try something. I took Zoloft and it changed my life. So like I really think you should try it. So for some reason that person, she got to me and I tried it and it did. It changed my life. And for the first time I actually realized that I had anxiety all my life. When that anxiety was removed, it's like, oh, wow. I don't have all these like incessant thoughts and this overwhelming like looming fear around me all the time. Is this what it's like to be normal? So it was amazing. However, I felt a little groggy and sleepy. Now, if you didn't know, I've mentioned this before, but I was diagnosed in 2nd grade with ADHD. So that's been something that I've struggled with. I've had to come up with a lot of different coping mechanisms to be able to study and be productive and to stay on task and stay focused. Caffeine had helped a little bit with that, but I still needed some extra help. I still had some room for improvement to improve the good old brain. Most people's brains, if you can get them to function properly, they're amazing. It's not that they're defective. It's just that they're not getting what they need. They're not getting some of these brain chemicals. So luckily, we live in this amazing era where there's so much science and research, and we have these supplements that we can buy on Amazon, and we can take it and we can feel amazing, and they're cheap. They're super cheap. It's amazing. So eventually, because I was feeling so groggy on the Zoloft, on the SSRI, I felt really good. But I felt like almost too good. I felt too like lethargic. If I had a test coming up, I was in the middle of pharmacy school and I was taking this, and I'd just be like, yeah, I got more time. It's cool. So it did the opposite effect, whereas I just like, oh, it's cool, it's fine. And I would push things off and be like, oh, you know, and I was like, this is not good. This is not good. So eventually I decided that I did not want to take an amphetamine. I had taken Adderall in high school. My mom had given me a sample of the Adderall, and I felt amazing. Just the lights turned on, and I was super sharp. I talk about in my gluten-free video, you can check it out up here, how going gluten-free had that kind of similar effect, where it's just like this cloud lifted, and it was like taking the NZT Limitless pill. But so Adderall was like that for me too. It was just like, all of a sudden I was like, I knew I was smart. I knew I was intelligent. I knew I had all these things that could connect together and just like it'd be right there on the tip of my tongue, and I could communicate better. I could think better. I could just boom, right on point. I could focus. I just like, everything was this very calm, focused, and I could just sit on one task and I could get it done with this hyper focus. It was amazing. But then it wore off, and I felt it was like I took a stupid pill. I felt like an imbecile. I just felt so dumb. I could not handle it. I was like, never again. I took it once, and I never wanted to do it again. So that was off the table. So I did some research. I actually read a book by Dr. Daniel Amen, and I'll leave that book in the description below. I can't think of it at the time. I think it's like Change Your Brain, Change Your Life, something like that. But it made me think about things in terms of the brain. How does the brain work? And thinking it for the first time in terms of brain chemicals and what certain conditions, people who have certain conditions, what they're deficient in, and how those are remedied. Now, he only looked at it from a pharmaceutical standpoint, but I began thinking about it, well, like what else is available that can act on those systems, that can work on dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin. So the first thing that I thought of actually was still a pharmaceutical, which was Wellbutrin. So I was like, well, Wellbutrin increases dopamine levels, or, you know, essentially, and norepinephrine. So I was like, that should work. That should help my ADHD. It should like help bring up my mood, help kind of offset, give me more energy so I won't be so sluggish, and it will help with my ADHD at the same time. I'm like killing two birds with one stone. And so I did some research, and I found like, oh, well, what do you know? It's actually used off-label, so it's not FDA there's not an FDA labeled approval for ADHD, but doctors will prescribe it to patients off label for ADHD. And people have really good luck with it. And guess what? They don't have a lot of the side effects and the come-off effects of the amphetamines, which is incredible. So I started taking this combination, and I graduated pharmacy school, started working at Walgreens, and that like kept me. It was like I was good. This was a good combo for me. It was amazing. But I was super wound up. I had super tight muscles, high anxiety, and that's when I started getting more and more into supplements to try to figure things out. And so eventually I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And anyway, long story short, I got off of both of these, and it wasn't until a while later that I was like, well, I found out about 5-HTP and that it's a serotonin precursor, that I can create serotonin levels in my body with just this cheap, simple amino acid. That's crazy. And so I tried it and it worked, and it did good. Like it wasn't as powerful as the SSRI per se, but with good nutrition and exercise, it allowed me to do it and not be reliant on a pharmaceutical. That Zoloft is pretty cheap, but some of these you may not have insurance, and you may have a drug that's more expensive and you can't afford it. So these supplements are amazing for people also who have these type of mental health issues or concerns, or just want to have better mood, that want to have feel better and have better alertness and cognition and focus and drive, but don't have the money to go to the doctor and get all this. You guys, my mic just fell off. Oh my gosh. Hold on. Sorry about that. I knew that I should have used a bigger piece of tape. So I don't even know where I was at, but back to these simple amino acids. L-Tyrosine. You can think of it as like an ADHD med in a supplement. Now, let me tell you the two supplements that I use. I've probably mentioned this a few times before, but I have ended up, I usually test one supplement. I was like, okay, that was a good supplement. And I'll compare it with usually one other one. And this brand, Nutricost, has always been a great supplement, and it's worked great in everything that I've used. And so I use Nutricost for a lot of stuff. So I highly recommend it. I have this 5-HTP here, 100 milligrams, 240 capsules. So this is like $10 or something like this. And usually I take one of these capsules every night. This lasts me 240 days. You kidding me? Can't get better than that, right? I mean, talk about today. It's amazing. I can buy it online. I don't have to move from my house, and it's delivered to my door. L-Tyrosine, 500 milligrams, 180 capsules. You know, I only take one of these capsules a day. That lasts me 180 days. It's incredible. And so those are really my go-to supplements that really help a lot with keeping my mental health up and being just very sharp and alert and not having too many problems. And so I wholeheartedly recommend these supplements. I'm going to put these over here. And I will link those in the description below so that you can take advantage of those. Those are the cheapest and the most effective. I think they're even made in the USA. How can you go wrong? So anyway, I thought that I would share these two very important and amazing supplements for mental health, 5-HTP and L-Tyrosine. So I gave you why it works. I gave you the pharmaceutical alternatives to taking it and some side effects that you can have from them. I mean, I only listed the sexual side effects for the SSRIs, but there's a lot of other ones. Weight gain. Wellbutrin doesn't have the weight gain. So if you're trying to go between those, then if you want to have we could go on for long time with this discussion. So any questions that you have, please leave those down in the comments below. Let's start talking about this. I'm trying to more and more open up about my own journey with mental health issues and overcoming those, and sharing my story and stories. It's been a long, windy road, and it's very difficult for a lot of people, but I have been able to accomplish a lot in my life. I've been able to get an undergraduate degree and a bachelor's of science in biology, and to have a doctorate in pharmacy, and to practice pharmacy, and to do all these things that a lot of people maybe say that you couldn't with these type of obstacles. So I hope that this video was helpful to you. If it was, please give me a thumbs up. Hit that like button, the thumbs up, and then please subscribe so you can stay up to date with new videos that are coming out that are going to help basically improve your life, make you a healthier, happier, more successful person. And until the next video, take care and to your health.